launch of the 2021 Infrastructure Sustainability Council Impacts Report, Pathways to Impact. I'm joining you today from sunny Gubbi Gubbi country on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the Gubbi Gubbi people, their elders past, present and emerging, and their deep connection to land and water. I'd also like to extend that acknowledgement to any First Nations people who might be joining us on the call today. We are so pleased you could be joining us. I'm Laura Harkin-Small, Head of Advocacy at the Infrastructure Sustainability Council. There is an air of palpable excitement this morning as we launch this year's Impacts Report. In a moment, I look forward to handing over to Christina Tonkin, Managing Director of Corporate Finance at ANZ, who, as this year's report sponsor, will officially launch our Impacts Report. This will be then followed by a keynote from our very own Ainsley Simpson, CEO of the Infrastructure Sustainability Council. Following Ainsley, we will be joined by three of our Impact Report partners, Mornay Brettenbach from Husker Australia, John Lamont from Watercare, and Tanya Smith from ANZ. Today would not have been made possible without our Infrastructure Sustainability Council community, our report partners, as well as our report sponsor ANZ. Thank you all for your commitment and contributions. We certainly hope you are as proud and pleased with our collective achievements from the last 12 months as we are. Without much further ado, I would now like to welcome Christina to the virtual stage to launch the report.
Thank you, Laura. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christina Tonkin and I'm the Managing Director of ANZ. Before I begin, I would also like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land. I'm calling here today from our offices in 242 Pitt Street. It's Gadigal land, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging leaders, not just here in Sydney, but across the region. I'd like to also thank the Infrastructure Sustainability Council for organising the launch today of the 2021 Impact Report, Pathways to Impact. ANZ is delighted to be a new member of the Council, and we're proud to support this important piece of research. The infrastructure developed today and financed today has generational impact, far beyond our time and those after us. This report highlights the importance of measurable impact and the importance of embedding sustainability to develop resilient and environmentally positive infrastructure. The enduring nature and longevity of infrastructure underscores how sustainable practices and technologies need to be embedded in its development. Indeed, sustainability and climate change are among some of the most critical issues we face today. It's estimated US 150 trillion will be needed to be invested globally over the next 30 years to achieve a net zero world. As we all know, governments around the world will be shortly gathering in Glasgow for COP26 to agree on public and measurable commitments to net zero carbon by 2050. And we look forward to hearing more of those as talks unfold. At ANZ, our purpose is to shape a world where people and communities thrive. Under our purpose, we're focusing on three key areas: housing affordability, financial well-being, and of course, environmental sustainability. This provides a clear mandate for how we act and puts sustainability at the heart of how we do business, how we treat our people, how we liaise with stakeholders and shareholders, regulators, and communities in which we operate. It's also why we value partnerships with organisations like the Infrastructure Sustainability Council. We're proud to be the first bank to join the Council, and we look forward to working with the Council and our fellow members to finance the transition to net zero carbon. The case studies in the Impact Report provide meaningful real-world examples, highlighting how the industry is delivering more on sustainable outcomes for today and future generations. I commend the Council for this initiative, and I recommend the report as a vital resource as we work towards a net zero carbon future. I'm now pleased to present the Infrastructure Council's 2021 Impacts Report. Thank you.
is that it is designed to achieve a positive carbon outcome, considering whole-of-life emissions during construction and embodied emissions during the 50 years of operation. The car park features the installation of 10 electric vehicle charging spaces, which supports Transport's goal of encouraging more customers to purchase low-emission vehicles and preparing the New South Wales road network for a low-emission future. The installation of electric vehicle chargers helps to encourage mode shift towards electric vehicles. The New South Wales Government is committed to increasing the uptake of electric vehicles, allowing more customers to benefit from cheaper running costs and creating a cleaner, quieter and more sustainable future.
As Queensland's largest road infrastructure project with an intrinsic sustainability focus, there was stringent criteria around the erosion control works incorporating 1 million plus square metres of self-sustaining revegetation solution. Manufactured in Queensland from recycled and sustainably sourced Australian waste timbers, VE Gromat provided a sustainable revegetation solution with the ability to deliver on best value principles. The CR2SM project is a prime example of vital products supporting sustainable development.
The Moriado Bypass project was delivered for Major Reporters Victoria, cooperation from Ecological, Department of Transport, and the contractor was a joint venture between McDonnell Dowell and Decmil. These noise walls in the project span about 32,000 square meters roughly, and in that span we have saved up to, we think, around 550 tons of curbside recovered plastic that would have otherwise ended up in Australian landfills. We have also created local jobs, utilized local tooling, and we think we provide a circular economy story like no other, because everything we manufacture in this space is also 100% recyclable at the end of its life.
And we're thrilled to be able to provide this case study for this year's ISC Impact Report. At SiteHive, we provide real-time environmental management for today's world. The main objectives of the case studies across all of the projects using us for the ISC submissions this year were really to reduce the impact of construction noise, dust, vibration and water on communities, on-site teams and the environment, creating a collaborative environment where communities and stakeholders are informed, enabled and empowered by transparent and easy to understand data. We wanted to change environmental monitoring from an analogue, reactive, laborious process using innovations in digital technology and sensors to enable a proactive approach to managing environmental impact, which can be applied across all of the company's portfolio. We wanted to address additional issues caused by operating during COVID by enabling quick and confident decisions to be made remotely, well informed by rich and contextual information, contributing to COVID-safe work sites.
We're really pleased to be involved with the Infrastructure Sustainability Council and their impact stories this year. I think we've had many different impacts since we've been operating, but the one that perhaps I'm most proud of and I think is most significant in terms of building momentum across the industry is the development of sustainability professionals. So from our humble beginnings in 2017, we now employ approximately 20 people, most of whom are dedicated entirely to sustainability, who have graduated from sustainability courses and who are beginning to make a difference within the workplace, within the economy and within society at large. And what this says to me is that sustainability professionals have never been more valued.
Responsible Steel brings a much needed, credible label to the building industry for the responsible sourcing and production of steel. It provides a simple and robust framework for stakeholders in the steel value chain to meet their climate change and broader sustainability objectives, as well as to manage risk in their supply chains. BlueScope's Port Kembla Steelworks is currently undergoing certification to the standard. We are committed to achieving certification as it aligns with our broader sustainability outcomes, including climate action and our 2050 net zero goal, responsible products and supply chains, and strong communities.
So for the 2021 Impacts Report, we highlighted two separate initiatives. The first one was our ecological value methodology, and we developed this with our ecologist from Boffa Miskell. where we were assigning numerical value to both our sites and the ecological enhancements that we were proposing to be able to select the most impactful and long-lasting options. And this enabled us to demonstrate a 33% net ecological value enhancement in our design rating. The driver for this initiative was really around being able to focus our ecological enhancements directly on site to better benefit the local environment and our neighbours, rather than offsetting somewhere far away. And since this work has informed our ecological management plan, we have captured and re-released in safer areas 50 eels and 74 native copper skinks.
Using waste and infrastructure to support the circular economy, we worked with suppliers to utilise a 100% recycled asphalt for a temporary car park on the Regency Road to Pym Street project. This helps industry see what is possible for incorporating recycled materials into infrastructure. Additionally, this was the first infrastructure project in South Australia to apply soft plastics in asphalt on an arterial road. With project support, Downer went on to develop an EPD, the first initiative of its kind in Australia, along with its inclusion in the ISC materials calculator, allows projects to compare asphalt products and quantify benefits associated with greener mixes.
Thank you, Christina, and to the ANZ team for all of your support for this year's report. Thanks must also go to our report partners who worked hard to supply their videos, many from lockdown situations. Although a little bit hard to communicate in this digital environment, I would like to offer a huge collective round of applause for all of your efforts. Thank you very much. I would now like to invite Ainsley Simpson, Infrastructure Sustainability Council CEO, to deliver our keynote for today. Thank you, Ainsley.
Thank you, Laura. Welcome to you all. Tēnā koutou katoa. I too would like to acknowledge today the Darug people, the traditional owners of the country from which I'm joining you. I also acknowledge the First People and custodians on all the lands in which we work, live and learn. I honour their deep connection to land, water and continuing culture and their rich contribution to our society. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Watching that video, I was racing around my screen trying to find emojis for liking and celebrating and loving. What a powerful video. Thank you all for joining us today. Today marks another milestone in the evolution of the Infrastructure Sustainability Council. Today we share with you results which confirm the infrastructure sector have crossed the chasm towards net zero and a future with more sustainable, resilient and inclusive infrastructure. Today we share solid evidence that by embedding sustainability requirements in business cases, procurement and contracts, we can halve our emissions, despite being considered one of the hard to transition sectors of our economy. A sustainable infrastructure-led recovery is well within our grasp, if underpinned by unwavering commitments to policy, planning, and sustainable procurement practice. First, my deep appreciation to our 2021 Impact Report sponsor, ANZ Bank, and a special welcome to Christina Tonkin and Tanya Smith. Thank you both for joining us today. Next is my wholehearted thanks to every member across our value chain. Our accredited professionals, the planners, the engineers, the construction teams, the product manufacturers, and the asset managers. Your work, your mahi, your success is our success. You've enabled not only the outcomes that we're sharing today, but also the impacts which are represented in a powerful new way. To each of our members that provided credible case studies, these provide a solid grounding for those that are in the starting blocks. They will benefit from seeing just what is possible. And also a very special thanks to my team, who every day strive for goals that are bigger than they can achieve on their own. In particular, the team that have handprints all over our impact report. Jennifer Wilkins, Laura Harkin-Small, Lauren Blundell, Lorraine Blackwood, Renal Narangoda, Massimo Ramiro, Kerry Griffiths, Sally Bunce, Adrian Miller, Jane Nichols, and Patrick Hastings. In the 2021 Impacts Report, we share a story of a rare event that unfolded in January this year, the blooming of Actinotus forsythii, the native pink fennel flower in the Blue Mountains. This little flower only blossoms once or twice in a human's lifetime because it requires very specific conditions to germinate. Fire followed by large amounts of rain. Those exact conditions were the ones that tested this region, as well as large parts of the Australian landscape 12 months before. The emergence of this humble flower reminds us of the opportunities that present, not by accident, but when all of the necessary conditions align, including adversity, a key driver of change. I'm yet to encounter someone in our membership or our wider network who doesn't agree that the last 12 months have been challenging. But from adversity comes opportunity. From adversity comes strength, because adversity demands choice. And our sector has chosen to ensure that the infrastructure that we are planning, delivering at an accelerated pace, and maintaining in earnest despite it aging, benefits all the communities that it serves for the long term. Infrastructure is the key enabler of our lifestyles, communities, and economies. By ensuring that all infrastructure delivers social, cultural, environmental, and economic benefits, our sector can help create a positive future for planet, people, and their prosperity. That's our purpose and our vision at the Infrastructure Sustainability Council. We're thinking deeply about how we as an organisation can help influence policy, planning, procurement, and practice to accelerate collaboration and positive change. We have 4 main goals: driving global best practice through sustainability leadership, enabling a connected, collaborative, ambitious, thriving industry, advocating for change that supports rapid market transformation, and ensuring that we are a purpose-led, inclusive, high-performing and healthy organisation. If we do this, our success will be your success. We'll begin to see even more assets and organisations delivering quadruple bottom line outcomes. This will set our sector up for success and readiness of our industry to address some of the most significant macro challenges of our time. With a critical mass of early adopters now well on their way, bringing along the supply chain and their peers, our members will build a world-class industry with infrastructure serving the lifestyles, communities, and economies of the future. While we're all familiar with sustainability outcomes, impact is a perspective on change which explores how organizational activities are experienced in the long term. Impacts are the changes that the quadruple bottom line outcomes are designed to facilitate. An example would be how we're contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. Impacts lie some way ahead. We may not be able to clearly see them or quickly attribute them easily to specific actions. But pathways to impact lie immediately before us. Through the pathway of creating livable communities, for instance, we can build sustainable cities and communities, SDG 11, and forge good health and well-being, SDG 3. Through the pathway of building a circular economy, we can develop sustainable industry, innovation, and infrastructure, SDG 9, and manage responsible consumption and production, SDG 12. This year's report explores and celebrates the numerous pathways through 4 impact themes: people, planet, prosperity, and the industry. And we've shared with you 26 industry case studies to demonstrate this. These pathways are introduced in the impact report, which covers the Infrastructure Sustainability Council, who we are, how we're governed, and our strategic plan. Our ambitions, how we're progressing against our strategic goals, and importantly, these pathways to impact, how industry is delivering outcomes to contribute to achieving longer-term transformative impact. Now, in reviewing the various statistics that are presented in the report, there are also updates and stories. There are three themes that stood out. 2021 was a year of investment, innovation, and impact. Some of the highlights are on your screen now. There are so many things that the team and I are particularly proud of. The very big milestone this year for us was, of course, launching IS version 2.1 back into the market, ready to implement. We've had 25 projects reach practical completion and be certified, and we've had a whopper year of new registrations. Our accredited professional body is also growing, but importantly, on the right-hand side, you can see some absolutely transformative outcomes in terms of emission reduction, diversion from landfill of waste, spoil reuse, the number of innovations our organisation is certifying and celebrating, along with projects in Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand, and of course all of the certifications I've mentioned. Through government's commitments, I beg your pardon, to an infrastructure-led recovery and shifting investment drivers leading to private investor interest in a range of different asset classes, the infrastructure pipeline will support and address portfolio deficits across a range of assets and jurisdictions. Along with the increasing importance of ESG and achieving net zero, rising sector activity has increased the uptake of the IS rating scheme, our strategic asset. We've had 55 new registrations across the last financial year, which represents a capital value of over $19.3 billion. At the end of the financial year, 175 projects were active on our register, a fourfold expansion in 4 years. Long-term horizons and demand for credible partnerships have underpinned our membership base, expanding 25%, now with over 200 members. Our membership is committed to sustainable infrastructure, and those values they value being involved in a collaborative peak body. Our members tell us that investing in sustainability is delivering benefits and driving the business case for change. Our last survey, our respondents reported that the greatest benefit of their ISC membership is enabling commercial outcomes, closely followed by personal and professional benefits of connecting, collaborating, and building capability. We continue to deliver on those benefits, and while COVID-19 made face-to-face contact really difficult, we did manage to exceed expectations and meet face-to-face and in a virtual environment at our Connect conference in May 2021. We brought together members, guests, speakers, and panelists, both in person and online, for a fun, valuable day of networking, knowledge building, and exchanging ideas. In response to increasing market demand, we have commenced onboarding pioneer partners to pilot the IS Essentials product. It's a modified version of the IS rating scheme for projects with a capital value under $100 million. The sector has been investing in capability with 212 new infrastructure sustainability accredited professionals joining the ranks in the last year. That's an incredible growth in our bench strength. The iSupply directory has expanded too, with a 10% increase in listings and use. The directory connects suppliers with sustainability focused products and services with projects and assets committed to sustainability and undertaking the IS rating scheme. It was most certainly a year of innovation. Innovation and evolution. In July, we launched our very new strategic plan. It included a new vision, purpose, and goals for delivering impact. We've got 4 strategic goals, and this impact report starts to track our progress against those goals. Innovation is a clear and consistent theme throughout the rating scheme. A core strategic focus for us this year, as I mentioned, was the release of IS version 2.1 into the market. And we are especially grateful to the many industry reviewers, credit developers, advisory group members who generously contributed their time to development, but also those teams that piloted the scheme and trialed individual credits through innovation challenges. We've had a determined focus on partnering and strengthening relationships to harness innovation for impact, pressing for an urgent shift towards low carbon, resilient and inclusive infrastructure. We're delivering a critical element of the low emission building material program with New South Wales Department of Planning, Industry and Environment, and actively supporting the Materials and Embodied Carbon Leaders Alliance, MECLA, part of the same program. We're exploring best practice in net zero and sustainability in the transport sector with Roads Australia and the Australasian Railways Association. And we're growing our understanding of net zero outcomes through design and delivery with the Australian Constructors Association and Consult Australia in partnership with Autodesk. Through the year, we've also continually been advocating for sustainable infrastructure through contributions to key policies and strategies at a state level, and importantly, also at central and national government levels. Through the Modern Slavery Coalition, we have furthered our support to businesses to address modern slavery in the roads infrastructure supply chain, and that includes commencing a pilot study. Looking at a year of impact. Over the past year, we certified 25 projects, including 1 planning, 12 design, 10 as-built, and 2 operations ratings. Across these, we were delighted to present 11 projects with leading certification, their highest possible rank, 10 with excellent, 2 with commended. And I should absolutely mention that we were also extremely excited to award our very first certifications under version 2 of the rating scheme. 1 gold and 1 silver certification. Congratulations to all of those teams. Our monitoring of environmental and circular economy performance on IS rated projects that are reaching the end of their delivery phase and deemed to be as-built projects show that the IS rating scheme is making a massive difference. For instance, as-built projects over the past 4 years have avoided 64% of life cycle energy greenhouse gas emissions and a further 40% of life cycle material emissions compared to business as usual practices. This represents 26.5 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent. That is the same as over 5,000 wind turbines running for 1 year. Circular economy results are inspiring too. 10 of the as-built projects that were certified collectively diverted 14.5 million tonnes, or 95% of their waste from landfill, ensuring the reuse of 97% use of spoil. The impact report is rich in data, and we also share 26 inspiring stories from our members about their achievements. These include case studies from IS rated assets, iSupply proprietors, and other members. You'll notice many different types of outcomes. For example, an iSupply listed supplier might be working on multiple projects delivering a low carbon product while creating an inclusive workforce and actively contributing to responsible, agile supply chain logistics. Under our 4 impact themes, people, planet, prosperity, and industry, we've identified at least 12 common impact pathways across these 26 stories. While certainly not an exhaustive list, these 12 impact pathways serve to illustrate how the industry is really working to create impact. These are real-world examples, clear evidence that a positive transformation is already occurring across our industry. And sustainability is not only delivering new business opportunities, but also productivity gains, efficiency outcomes, and innovation. We are also growing skills and capabilities across our sector. Sustainability is a critical catalyst for industry transformation in infrastructure. So in closing, I would certainly like to again acknowledge and thank all of our members and partners for their commitment and passion to intergenerational outcomes. Now is the time to start steering towards the future we choose. It is the time to invest, to innovate, and to make an impact together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ainsley. What an exciting report to be sharing with our community today. Just while we get organised, I'd like to invite our other panellists to the digital stage. John Lamont, CEO of Watercare, Tanya Smith, Director of Sustainable Finance at ANZ, Mornay Brettenbach, Managing Director, Husker Australia. Welcome all. Just before we kick off, we're going to have a bit of a discussion, but to our audience today, you will also have the opportunity to ask some questions from our panel. You'll see a Q&A box down the bottom there. Please feel free to pop those in and we'll see how many we might be able to get through today. Panel, thank you so much for joining us today. Obviously, we've got a jam-packed report we're launching today. I might kick off just with a bit of a round the table to get a sense of what some of your key takeaways were from the impacts report and perhaps sustainability with the infrastructure more generally over the last 12 months. Were there any particular themes or trends that were really leaping out of you as you had reviewed the report? John, I might jump to you first.
Thanks very much, Laura. I think the key thing for me was we're raising the bar. It's really inspiring just to see some of the incredible approaches that are being taken to infrastructure projects that result in better outcomes. And they're getting more and more impressive each year, I think. Look, it's not just the way we're approaching projects, but the outcomes that they're delivering that's making the difference, I think. Real improvement in livability for communities, engaging with mana whenua or traditional owners of the land, the other side of the ditch, as well as hitting those climate change objectives. And one of the case studies I was particularly taken with, and saw it in the video, the Ta'ahu Aturanga Manawatu Tararua Highway. 5 iwi not necessarily used to working together. So we've got not just a road, we've made a difference to lives and to futures. And from my own experience of working with mana whenua, a project that isn't in the pack today, but Pukekohe wastewater treatment plant, where we talked to iwi at the design stage, and they said, look, what you're going to produce isn't meeting the standard and it's not living up to our view of the world. So we added on ultraviolet treatment. So the product that comes out of the bottom end of it is way better than any stream that's in the local vicinity. It's not just made a difference to the Pukekohe community, it's now set a new standard for every plant that we roll out forevermore. And I think that's the difference that engagement can really make. Thanks.
Mornay, as a sustainable, responsible supplier, what were some of your takeouts from hearing some of the stories and statistics contained within the report?
Thank you very much, Laura. It's very exciting to be part of this initiative. As a manufacturer of geosynthetic solutions, we are certainly excited to see the acknowledgement across various stakeholders of the importance of sustainability, and how innovation is playing a very important part of moving forward the reaching of sustainable goals. It's also interesting to see that not only new build infrastructure projects are important for sustainability, but also the remediation of projects and industries that has come in the past. So it's very important to look at and analyze, what we get involved with and how we increase and better our understanding of the impact of these past infrastructure projects, in terms of future sustainability and how we protect the environment for future generations to come. One of the very interesting emerging contaminants that has come to the fore, even in large infrastructure, currently planned large infrastructure projects, is PFAS. It's only recently that we understand what impacts these chemicals can have on humans and the food chain that we consume. So having innovation and understanding how these can impact and how we can treat them, and coming up with new new ways of containing these type of emerging chemicals is very important. And I think as we continue and as we continue to make sure that the stakeholders across all the across all projects are aware of what these project contaminants can do for us and how we can treat them, infrastructure projects will become even more and more sustainable.
Wonderful. Tanya, from a sustainable finance lens, you bring yet another different, unique perspective. What were some of the takeaways you had?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. For me, there were three key takeaways. So one was the incredible focus on product innovation that we're seeing, as the world starts to focus, and particularly investors who are more and more focused on understanding impacts and looking at moving towards that low carbon economy and directing their money towards that, that there's still a really big need for innovation in technology and processes to be able to achieve those outcomes and lower emissions. And so it was so fabulous to see the variety of product innovation, whether that be in using recycled content to do noise walls or sort of concrete mesh and the like, or things like low carbon concrete, finding ways to reduce the embodied carbon within materials. The other thing that stood out to me when looking through a number of the case studies was around the focus on ecosystem services and really how important that is. And that's another theme that we're seeing in the investment community and the financial community, is a real focus on sort of nature, biodiversity, and investors wanting to find opportunities to demonstrate that they are supporting that. And that's a theme we're hearing through the task force on nature-related financial disclosure, which I'll probably mention later on. And the third thing that really stood out to me was that so many of the case studies in the report really involve collaboration. It wasn't just one company producing a new product, it was multiple players coming together across the value chain to solve these challenging problems and develop these new approaches. And I think that that's something that's really fabulous, and that particularly the IS Council really helps, the iSupply directory and being able to connect with people throughout different parts of the value chain really, I think, is part of the value of being an IS Council member. And that was something that came through in the impact report, that a lot of these problems that we're trying to solve for require collaborative approaches, and that's what we're doing. So it was nice to see.
Fantastic. I think it's so pleasing to hear that all of those themes resonated with you as you were reviewing it. And I think one of the fantastic characteristics of our community and our work is that diversity of value that we are able to deliver. And it's very exciting to be able to showcase that in this year's report. Ainsley, you touched on it briefly, it's part of your keynote, but obviously this report is very looking back at the last year, but it also starts to shape our future focus. What are you seeing, as CEO of the Infrastructure Sustainability Council, but obviously engaging and talking quite a lot to our community, as some of the key challenges and opportunities for our industry coming up in the next 12 months and beyond?
Laura, there's both opportunity and challenge. I think the biggest challenge is going to be the pace at which infrastructure is being planned and delivered. And oftentimes pace can outstrip the need for policy and the focus on the long term in exchange for immediate productivity gains, having projects get on the ground. And I think what is useful is to continue the momentum. And one of the other things I highlighted in the opening for today is that the impact report this year really demonstrates that we have crossed the chasm. We have now got a critical mass of organisations and particularly really progressive government departments backing sustainable infrastructure. But now is the time to continue doing that, to accelerate that kind of practice, rather than be concerned or diverted away from holding that line. Policy needs to trump place, or at least policy needs to trump pace, so that we generate the places and the future for communities and generations to come.
John, do you have any, particularly as our panelists from New Zealand this morning, what are you seeing as some of the key opportunities and challenges out in the grounds on your side of the ditch? We'll switch it back over.
Okay, so I guess for me, the raising of the bar is really obviously really good, but I guess the question in my mind is, are we hitting the mainstream? There's lots of great examples that we're talking about today, lots in the report, and hopefully they're going to inspire every single project as we go along. The opportunity really is to kind of learn from those and see how we can replicate it across all of the asset projects, not just the chosen, few poster children, I guess, with the big budgets. And so, for us, Central Interceptor, and Olivia talked on the video about our approach to ecological modelling. How do we apply that elsewhere? Across all of our infrastructure program, you'll know that we've got a 40-20-20 approach. So 40% cut in carbon by 2030, 20% cut in costs of actually delivering, and 20% improvement in health and safety. So it's driving that ethos right the way through every project, not just the one or two.
Morné, what are you seeing around key opportunities and challenges from your perspective? I'm sure Ainsley's call out around the level of investment and activity going on at the moment might resonate with some of your work within your business at the moment.
Absolutely. In terms of the opportunity, I definitely want to follow on from Tanya's collaboration. I believe that if all stakeholders across project delivery systems collaborate, I believe we will continue to build on the momentum that we currently are seeing in our region's sustainability approach. Being a global manufacturer and a global player, I must say that through the Infrastructure Sustainability Council and all the partners, we are leading the way. People are noticing this. Definitely across the world, which is very exciting for me. When I sit and talk to my colleagues around board meetings, it's really, really exciting to hear how interested they are in what we are busy doing and how they want to emulate what is being done. One of the biggest challenges that I do see for us in the future is a simple one. It's education. It is making sure that we as players and believers in what we do in terms of sustainability are able to translate what we do into the education and the uptake, to make sure that asset owners, regulators, designers, and contractors, the guys who actually deliver these projects, are educated and understand what benefits sustainable solutions can have, both short-term and long-term. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time ahead.
No, collaboration is certainly at the core of a lot of the work we do, and look forward to only those sort of efforts strengthening to deliver the outcomes that we need over the next year and beyond. Tanya, what are your thoughts around what you're seeing around some key challenges and opportunities for the next year and beyond?
Yeah, obviously I come from a slightly different lens, but I think one of the things that we're really seeing that will be both an opportunity and a challenge or a risk for companies is around that working with their supply chains, both within their own business, but with their supply chains, to look at measurement, disclosure and reporting. And so what we're seeing is that, and what we're hearing and what we want as a bank ourselves, is increased transparency on how people are achieving these impacts and what impacts their projects are having. So there's been a real focus on embodied carbon and scope 3 emissions within the financial sector, a lot of sustainability linked loans being linked to that information. And so making sure that people within the infrastructure world are able to measure and report that information, I think is a big challenge, but also a huge opportunity, because those who can will most likely have, you know, greater reception from financial parties, potentially greater liquidity and access to capital as a result. And those who don't eventually may actually find that that's a penalty for them. You know, there's a risk there that they'll have less access to capital. So I think that focus on measurement, disclosure and reporting is that big opportunity, but also could be a challenge for some.
Thank you. Before we jump into our next question, we're just coming towards the end of our panel discussion. So I would like to invite the audience yet again, if you do have any questions that you'd like to put to the panel for discussion, feel free to put them into the Q&A box below, and we'll try and put as many as we can to the panel in the last few minutes of our session. I thought we obviously talked a little bit there around future challenges and opportunities in general sense, but as we've got a group of 4 panelists that come from quite different parts of the value chain with different perspectives, I thought I might just invite the opportunity for you to share a little bit around what is the focus for your organisation at the moment around sustainability and infrastructure, and what is some of the work and efforts you're really honing in on going forward in the next 12 months and beyond. John, do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, sure. So we've got around just shy of 1,200 staff in water care. And for me, unofficially, they've all got sustainability in their job titles, because everyone can make a difference, whether it's the call centre operators I've got who are talking about water efficiency with their customers, or the people who are working in treatment plants who are reducing energy consumption the whole time. So we've got a culture, it's in the DNA of sustainability. We know, because we deal with water, we're intrinsically linked to the natural environment. So we do have a really big role in supporting thriving communities, being part of that community, and the industry in Aotearoa and beyond, wherever we can. So in 2015, all of these concepts we put into an organisational strategy. We had fully sustainable as one of the 4 strategic objectives, and you can't get away from it if you work in water care, because it's the first thing you see on your screen every time you tap in every day. So look, it is part of the DNA. We really encourage people. We're creating funds to be more innovative, explore this space, and frankly letting people loose to get on and come up with those innovations and ideas.
Wonderful. Morné, what's work look like for your team at the moment, and certainly coming up into the busy season and into next year?
I mean, we recently, I'm sure everybody has seen the recent article the Queensland government has put out of $62 billion worth of infrastructure projects being released, into the wild over the next few years. And we are fortunate in the geosynthetics industry that compared to what is considered conventional construction methods, geosynthetics saves about 89% of CO2 output into the environment just through the incorporation of those solutions into infrastructure projects. So again, it comes back to educating, these planners to make sure that they make use of the benefits of this technology. And also, as part of our sustainability drive, we are working, and I know it's a question for a lot of people, we are working with transport authorities to recognize the value of recycled solutions and them gaining faith in that you will get the same or better outcomes through the incorporation of these recycled solutions. It does take time, it takes a lot of effort, but every one of the people on the ground for Who's Australia definitely speaks sustainability and the benefits of sustainable construction methodologies 24/7.
Fantastic. And that actually links to a question from the audience that we've got coming up. So beautifully answered 2 questions in one there, Morné. Tanya, what's your team's focus, particularly around acceleration of sustainable finance? I imagine you're quite busy at the moment.
Yes, that is true. I think across ANZ, as Christina mentioned in the opening remarks, we're a purpose-led organisation, and our purpose is to help individuals and communities thrive, and there's a big focus on environmental sustainability as part of that. And so what we're seeing across the bank is this focus on integrating ESG, environmental social governance practices, across every element of the bank, so that it becomes sort of core to financial services, no matter what we do. So a big part of that is looking at sort of what we bank and who we bank and how. You know, it's about the groups that we participate in. So we've signed up to be part of the UN convened Net Zero Banking Alliance and Mark Carney's Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero in the lead up to COP, and things like the TNFD Stakeholder Forum. So there's a focus on making sure that we as an organisation are informed about where the direction is going, but also embedding that into, as I said, sort of our lending practices. And so our team, or my team, the sustainable finance team, is really focused on tapping into customers who are kind of innovating and moving in the right direction. And so, you know, the whole market, there's ISC members from every part of the value chain who are tapping into that. So, you know, we heard mention of a few of the customers who are tapping into sustainable finance in the videos. So, you know, there've been sustainability linked loans done by Downer. You've got infrastructure projects like Canberra Metro or Sydney Light Rail, Royal Adelaide Hospital, another social infrastructure project that's tapped into that sustainable finance piece. You've got groups like Lendlease, Charter Hall, you know, Wholesome, who's looking at low carbon cement. You've also got most state treasury corporations tapping into green bonds or sustainability bonds, councils, and even the designers, people like, and the consulting firms, people like Worley and Sabana Jurong, who are all, you know, ISC members and who are tapping into this world of sustainable finance and at times getting better financial kind of terms as a result. So we're really focused at rolling that out and making sure that all of those companies who are leading in this space and who are committed to a lower carbon future are able to access those products and make the most of aligning their cost of capital with their sort of strategic intent around sustainability.
Thank you, Tanya. We have had a couple of questions from the audience. I think they're slightly different, but have a similar theme. And Ainsley, I might put this to you. I think you're probably strongest positioned, although certainly Mornay touched on some of this a little bit. One of the key themes I think that's come out for all of us from the impacts report is almost that that critical mass or that tipping point we've reached around proving successful implementation of sustainability solutions, products, approaches. How do we then, what's the next step? How do we take our stakeholders along with us to really achieve that next level of implementation and embedding throughout as business as usual? Two of the examples shared from the audience today include standardization of standards across jurisdictions for various products, as well as supporting our clients and asset owners to explore and have confidence in some of these new approaches and innovations.
Those were excellent questions. Thank you, Tony and Christine. Great to see you both here on the webinar with us today. I think the key element there is expectation management and both sides of the communication equation. What we're certainly seeing and the relationships that we're developing is that proponents, be they private or public sector proponents, are willing to listen about the barriers to implementing some of the requirements. But what is absolutely critical is that there is more harmonization around things like specifications so that we don't have micro innovations happening which then don't scale and actually then don't support industry to drive the longer term impact. I certainly think that collaboration is going to be really important, but I have seen a whole lot more listening and appreciation that collaboration sometimes makes things take a little longer than what we're used to or than what we would like. But the outcomes that are delivered when we actually take the time to hear one another, means that longer term, we do have increased efficiencies, we have got better outcomes, and we've got innovation that scales. So just coming back to the way in which you framed that question for some of our other panelists, I think the focus for the future needs to be continuing the momentum by bringing others along. Don't shame people for where they're at. Recognize that where they are is where they are, and it's our opportunity to share all of this upside. We need to continue the focus on policy planning and procurement, and we need to continue driving social, cultural, environmental, and economic benefits because they are not mutually exclusive. If we do that, we will be able to deliver a net zero, resilient, inclusive infrastructure asset base. But the only way we're going to get there is through collaboration, playing to diverse strengths across an incredible value chain and come together with purpose-driven, impact-centric approaches, and taking the time to listen.
Thank you. We've just got a few moments left. Team, did you have any other comments or thoughts that you might want to briefly share in closing? John?
So I suppose the example we've got at the moment is one where we've just bought some electric lorries to remove some of our spoil, because it was always thought that, oh, this is too ridiculously expensive, they'll never work, the batteries won't last, and all the rest of it. So we just said, we just got to do it and try it and make it happen, and we'll show. And if we can demonstrate it, the rest of the market will come in. So I suppose the message from me, just do it, because that's what we need to do.
Fantastic. If not, why not? Mornay, any closing thoughts?
I would just like to thank Ainsley and yourself and the rest of the team at the Infrastructure Council, Sustainability Council, of giving us this platform to have these discussions. I think and creating a place where we can speak to the regulators and the people who need to hear what we have to say, and scaling innovation. This is a platform for that. I think it's a great start, and I think the future is bright. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Yeah, I just echo, wearing the banking hat. The more that people can talk about the economic benefits or the business case for their initiatives, the better. But that, people should be talking to each other and communicating about all of the impact benefits, and not just within their own sector, but to the financial sector, to their investors, to their banks, to everyone, because that's really where they'll be able to reap some additional benefits, I think, in terms of depth of a relationship and financial support from the investment community. So that would be my key message at the end.
Thank you. Well, that about wraps up our panel discussion. John, Mornay, Tanya, Ainsley, of course, thank you so much for your participation today and your contributions to the impacts report. And certainly, more broadly, thank you for your organisation's commitments and contributions to our sustainability journey. It's very much appreciated. So exciting times ahead for everybody here. As you'll see, a QR code has popped up onto your screens. If you take a scan of that, that will take you immediately to our website, where you'll find a copy of this year's impacts report. In closing, I would really like to thank all of our partners who have contributed to this report, in particular our report sponsor ANZ. Thank you to our broad community, our partners, our policymakers, our suppliers, our members, industry bodies. Thank you. All the best for the rest of the day. And I look forward to hearing all of your feedback about our 2021 impacts report, Pathway to Impacts. Thank you.